like I was saying, we are doing the silent tier list today. It's gonna be a long one, for sure, because chat is rowdy. And also, when I did the last one, it took me a really long fucking time, even when chat wasn't being overly rowdy. We've got the S through F tier. We're gonna go through alphabetically, all 75. If you're watching this on YouTube, come be a part of the bullying or the headache that is Twitch chat. It's a good headache, don't get me wrong, but fuck. I described it earlier as a chat is a collective newborn child. I love them to death. They're one of the greatest things to happen to me. But sometimes they just make me so stressed out I can't get jack shit done and be productive in the slightest bit. So I'm gonna try. Chat's in their rocky chair. They've got the little stars circling above them. They're trying to reach out for it, learning their motor skills. While I go over all 75 of the silent cards and rate them. We start off with the order that Slay the Spire likes it. There's going to be 1,000 cuts. 1,000 cuts is a power. It's kind of...
More like 1,000 nuts, cool cat.
I tend to take this card very little. And I tend to take it very little because if you find it early, your deck doesn't do enough to really utilize it. But even if it does, it's like not guaranteed that you're going to get an energy relic, and then like you're sitting at having difficulty to play it all the time and then be able to survive for the turn and then like kind of pop off. And then if you get it later into the game, your deck already kind of does enough that this is just kind of like adding in. It's a little bit Winmore-y like Fletcher said. It's never what it's very rarely what my deck needs. And you're like, oh, but it's good AoE. But like inside of the AoE fights, like let's say Reptomancer, right? That's like the key Act 3 thing that you're gonna need AoE for. If this is upgraded and I can play 8 cards a turn, like it's still not killing her ads. It's not that good, in my opinion. And also I rate it even lower because when do we normally see rare cards after boss fights? And if this is paired with like a doppelganger and some more ass tier shit, I'm upset to see it. I'm gonna put it in D tier. Let's remind ourselves what we're rating these cards based on. We're basing it off of availability to put in our deck regularly and also the dopamine rush that we feel when we see it. Accuracy. Beta art, not that good. Upgrade. Recently, accuracy got a buff along with Blade Dance getting a buff. So this used to deal 3 damage and I think it was 5 damage upgraded. Now it's 4 damage and 6 damage upgraded. And also Blade Dance got an extra shiv added into the card. And right now I think that shivs are equal to poison builds, if not better right now. Just because of shivs are nuts right now. Shivs are crazy good. If this was like Wristblade, where it made all 0 cost attacks deal more damage, I would consider putting this in high A or S tier. But because it doesn't do that and it's only shivs and it requires other cards to take, I don't get excited about seeing it early, but I do think that it's incredibly rewarding now with how much damage it will add. I mean, literally Blade Dance goes from dealing 16 damage upgraded, which is already just cracked, to dealing 40 damage. Oh my God. I would say A tier. I would say A tier if it was that 0 cost stuff. But because it's not, I'm going to say B tier. Just because it requires stuff to be good, but then it just makes it great. So I'm going to say B tier just because I don't get super excited about seeing it. You definitely need a deck that works with it. Acrobatics. One of the benefits that the Silent has is a lot of fucking draw. The Silent has an unbelievable amount of draw mechanics. The Silent just has ways to draw things, and they're common, right? There's a lot of common cards that draw a lot of cards. Acrobatics is phenomenal. I would relate Acrobatics a lot to Cool-Headeds on the defect. Early in the game, you're like, I got 3 mana. What am I digging for? What am I digging for to play? You know? I got 5 cards in my hand. Most likely one of them's not a curse. And I got 3 mana. Why am I going to spend 1 mana to draw from 4 defends or like 2 defends in a strike to draw 3 more strikes in a neutralize? Like it's weird, right? It's not all that good early game, but late into the game, when you got extra mana, you got some synergies like Tacticians, you got some stuff. Acrobatics is poggy. And because of the fact that you can draw 4, and not only draw 4, but that discard at the end, because how often do I actually need all 4 cards from Acrobatics? You know what I'm saying? I think Acrobatics is A tier, right? It's a common card. You're going to see a million of them. And when I need some draw, when I'm like, all right, the only thing that I need left to round out this deck is some draw options. Poggers. All right, Adrenaline. Adrenaline is easy S tier. What the fuck? Do I get excited when I see an Adrenaline in a hallway fight? Yeah. Do I get excited when I see an Adrenaline in a boss reward? No. And I think that's why I don't get super excited about Adrenaline. It's just kind of meh. Like, you draw 2 cards and you get an extra energy. Like, it's just a card. Like, it's... To be a rare card, it barely does anything. So I would put Adrenaline in A tier because of the fact that it's very similar to Thousand Cuts in the sense that it's not giving me a corpse explosion or an after image. It's just not giving me the shit that I'm wanting. It's not gonna be like, oh dude, we got an Adrenaline, we won. You know? But yeah, it just doesn't do enough to make me horny. Now, after image, S tier. Any arguments, chat? Nah, no, okay, yeah. On any other class, maybe the Watcher, this wouldn't be S tier. I would say on the Ironclad, this would be like D tier. Like the Ironclad doesn't play enough cards. But the Silent has so much cycle, right? With the acrobatics, with the shivs, with everything. Is too good. All right, moving on. Alchemize. Gang's all here. At least the important gang, you know what I'm saying? I think upgrade of Alchemize not upgraded is like good. Upgraded Alchemize is great. And I think that a lot of players, when they're new to the game, they don't value potions a lot. And then I can use that potion. Potion value is insane. I think that Alchemize, honestly, I'm not excited to take the card, right? Because again, there's better. There's just hornier cards. There's cards that make me a little bit more excited. You know what I'm saying? But I think that Alchemize is extremely powerful and can hands down be a reason why you win a run, right? That is a run-winning card, in my opinion. I'm gonna put Alchemize in S tier. I don't think it's better than After Image. I don't think it's better than Wraithform. I don't think it's better than a lot of cards that we're gonna throw into S tier. But yeah, I think it's good. All-out attack. What the fuck? I didn't know that the Silent pilots a fucking Jaeger. It's a Transformer? Nah, there's definitely a little person in there driving that. So like maybe Power Rangers, but I don't remember the Power Rangers having missiles. I think All Out Attack is solid. It's just similar to like Conclude from the Watcher, where you kind of just use it last and you don't really give a shit what it discards. Like the discarding of it is never really, you're never really getting what you want, really. Like you're never like, oh, I have an All Out Attack, let me take this Tactician. You're never doing that. I actually think that I think that if it was a common card, I would actually mauled because I don't want to see this card a lot. But adding 1 to my deck early just kind of guarantees wins against Tri-Sentries and you know, like Reptomancer. But yeah, I think it's a really solid card. I do. I would definitely add 1 to every single deck that I run. Most of the time, I would say. Unless I'm running like a Runic Pyramid type of deck. I don't think it's something incredible. I think it's just a great card to add early on and to just be able to pummel things with. So I'm gonna add it to the top of B tier because again, not really super excited to see it out of like Act 1 or 2. All right, Backflip. It's the Paper Frog chat doing it. Backflip is literally just defend, but you get to draw 2 cards, and that is awesome. That's fucking awesome, man. Again, the Silent has a million draw things. This is a common card, so if it's not good in your deck now, you're almost guaranteed to see some later once you've got some decks, once you've got a billion energy, once you've got some synergies, right? I would say that we're going to throw Backflip easily without thinking about it, A tier. I think I'll put it right next to Acrobatics in the sense that these are just your core that you're excited to see 100 of late game so that you can make your deck good. All right, Backstab. What? So, a lot of times, I think that having innate cards like Backstab, because when you're saying I get to draw cards in turn 1, you know, you need to get your deck off the ground floor to be able to not die or take the initial hit, especially on A20. There's a lot of mobs like the Avocado that just kind of slap you, dude. And like 15 damage on turn 1, cool. I get to reduce his block, his plated armor. Hoagi. But I think that shitty innate cards on the Silent can be a little bit more accepted because of the fact that she draws 7 cards on turn 1. So I think that if you have an early Backstab to take and there's no other options, or, you know, the other options are like Endless Agony or, you know, shit. I think that Backstab is fine to be able to help you deal with like Gremlin Knob and maybe killing one of the Tri-Sentries early so that you don't get as many dazed cards or have to take the turn 2 20 damage. Yeah, so I think Backstab is fine. And we talked in the defect about boot sequence, how boot sequence kind of helps you get that initial block on turn 1 that a lot of, you know, RNG can manipulate and make you suck balls at. And this is kind of the opposite of that. It gives you early damage, which isn't great later into the game, but is good in the beginning of the game to, like, you know, you run into like Gremlin Gang and you just get to one-shot them right off the bat. That's good. Oh my god, and Julius Caesar back. Instant S tier. Where do I see Backstab among all of these clowns? Definitely not A tier. I'm not super excited to see it. I could understand it in B tier. It's like, seems like where a lot of the uncommon cards for the Silent go. I'd also understand it in C tier. I think it's in the B to C range. Like, you're not super excited to see it late game. I think late game is just kind of useless. But in that early game, it's very valuable. But I think because it doesn't fill a necessity at all points of the game, I think it goes in C. Let me explain, right? We talked about early game, or if you have a synergy, you're gonna be taking it early, and then it's gonna work. And it's gonna help you defeat elites. It's gonna go with Bag of Marbles. It's gonna be a lot of damage, whatever. But I talked about that with all-out attack, you might only take it early in the game. But also, like, if you get into the late portions of the game and you lack AoE, you might be like, this is a poggy time to take it, right? This is a good card to be able to just have a strong cut of AoE. Same thing with accuracy. So I think that's where the distinguishing factor is for me. Bane. Bane is garbage, says someone in Twitch chat. Does 20 damage for 1 mana sound bad? Also scales twice with your strength. 20 conditional damage. You're not wrong. At the very worst, Bane is a strike plus. I think that it scales very quickly, and it could do a lot. You're never gonna upgrade this shit. True, you're very unlikely to upgrade this shit, but I think that it's extremely strong early game. Like, if you have a poison stab, going into elites is, yeah, I'm just gonna go take elites. Like, if I have like a couple of like small poison cards, like maybe a Noxious Fumes, a Bane early on is gonna definitely help me secure victories at higher HPs. Am I excited to see the card? No. Because let's be real here, right? What does Bane work with? Poison. What does poison do? Poison does a lot of fucking damage. You want to know what Bane doesn't do comparatively to poison? Like, comparatively to poison, Bane's damage sucks balls. Like, it's good front-loaded damage, but when you have a poison deck, usually when you have a poison deck, damage is not the thing that you're really worried about. But I think that it can go into a deck early and just remain like a solid strike. And I'm not upset if like my strikes transform into it. You know, I'm not. It's just a strike plus, and it doesn't do draw. It doesn't do anything other than just some front-loaded damage, which is cool. Whew, I'm gonna go with Bane. It's C or D tier. It's C or D. I'm thinking right now, is it on par with Thousand Cuts or is it on par with Backstab? I think it's on par with Backstab. All right, moving on. That's nice. We talked about accuracy being upgraded recently and getting even better because Blade Dance was upgraded recently from 3 to 4 shivs, which is nuts. Like, that is cracked. 1 mana, 16 damage. Are you fucking kidding me? Is Omega good. It synergizes with so much of what the Silent wants to do. The Silent is rewarded oftentimes by playing a large amount of cards, right? You've got Envenoms, you've got your finishers, you've got your after images, you've got your stuff and things. You got your kunais, your shurikens, right? You got all this stuff that 1,000 cuts. Ugh. Either way, you've got a billion things that makes the Silent want to play a bunch of cards. So being able to play more is good, usually. Obviously, you know, you got Time Eater. And technically, Blade Dance got nerfed against Time Eater because not playing your shivs on the card that you acquire your shivs and then them shuffling into your deck. Oh! I think, in the current state of the game, seeing a Blade Dance on an early floor, nut. It's a better sword boomerang. It is literally a sword boomerang that you can target. Like, that is crazy. Negativities, right? Bad against characters that don't like you playing spells. Bad against Time Eater because you have to play a bunch of cards. The highest of high of A tier. I think new Blade Dance, new Shiv shit, Omega good. Let us move on to Blur. I think Blur is such a fucking good card. Just because of the way the Silent functions, I think that, like, you're like, oh, it's just, you know, a one-turn barricade. Right? Yeah, but you could have, like, the Silent cycles so fast that you can oftentimes, like, have 3 of them or 2 or 3 of them in your deck and just be playing them over and over and over again, and you just retain it all the time. And the Silent has so much more access to block cards, to like heavy amount of block because of things like footwork and because of some of her relics and because of some things like after image. I want to say S tier, but not every deck can use a Blur. So I'm not always excited to see a Blur. But I think because of the functionality of it, Blurs are, you take them when it wins you the game. So I think because of the classification of when I take it, I'm going to put it in S tier. That might be a controversial opinion. I feel like I am making a lot of people upset all day today. All right. Bouncing Flask. You having fun on the trampoline. 45 damage. Is that how much this does over the entirety of it? Yeah. But also RNG of poison in multi-targeted fights. Also the cost of it. Also the fact that most hallway fights will win far before you get the full damage off of it. It is good because it blocks artifacts. I just think that oftentimes, and this is a hot take, boys. This is a hot take. The issue with Bouncing Flask is people take it too early in Act 1, and then it is unupgraded and only deals 9 poison. Let's be real here, 9 poison for 2 mana feels like shit. One in the chat if you agree, especially when it's randomized between multiple targets. It becomes extremely difficult to play in most of the fights that you go into, right? You think about the Act 1 Elite fights. There's only one Elite that it's really good in unless you get it on turn 1 of the Gremlin Knob fight. And then you never get to upgrade it because you're constantly resting because you have this fat fucking curse in your deck. And by the time you get to the boss, you've done nothing but rest and never upgraded your 9 damage poison, and it becomes a heavier and heavier and heavier card. So on and so forth. Where would I say Bouncing Flask is? I think that it fits a very similar niche to these cards. I think it's B tier because we look at the cards and what they're doing. We're not just going to immediately take a Bouncing Flask, but when we're fucking sucking the teat of the green fumes, it's good. Solid. All right. Bullet time. I don't like that at all. That's a Bullet time, I feel like, is a card that we oftentimes look at our deck and we're like, I could make that work in this deck. And then it's absolutely useless. One in the chat if you agree. That's how I feel like bullet time is oftentimes used. It's great in Runic Pyramid. Yeah, no, it's got its places, right? Like, this tier list is off of, like, excitement of seeing a card regularly and how easily it can be added to the variety of decks, right? And bullet time is a very niche card. Very niche. I think that it is a C tier card, but I think it's the top of C tier. It has wrist blade synergy. All right, boys, I'm so sorry. I apologize immediately for putting it in C tier. Fucking top of S tier. Works well? Did you just say it works well with wrist blade? Oh my god. All right, let's go. Let's move it on. Burst. S tier. Some say, chat, that the reason that the Watcher is blind is because the Silent popped her balloon and she just couldn't take seeing the beauty of her world taken away. Burst is a 100% S tier. Is it even higher than S though? No. No. Because you definitely need stuff in your deck to work. Because there's oftentimes situations where you'll put a burst early in the deck and then it's like, I could use burst defend or I could play defend and defend. Is burst just diet echo form? Yes, but no. Because you can choose when you want to use it. And I think that's a powerful effect. Bursting a blur, that's the double B combo. The B squared combo. I think that burst, I do think that burst is easily an S tier card. Just because later into the game, even early into the game, you get like one strong card. That's what I feel like the Silent does. Is like the Silent has a couple of strong cards and a bunch of ways to get to that strong card. There's so many things that burst can just synergize with. The Silent definitely has a lot of strong spells. We all know it because the Molten Egg was made for the Ironclad, Toxic Egg was made for the Silent, Frozen Egg was made for the Defect, right? So they all kind of synergize really well. She really likes spells. Spell stuff is spell stuff. Spell stuff is spell stuff. Calculated Gamble, the most terrifying card with the Googly Eye mod. A very strong card that doesn't always need to be upgraded. If your deck really likes it upgraded, then yeah, sure, but it's oftentimes just good just to mulligan a hand. It's got variety of uses. Yep. You can use it when you drop a Runic Pyramid into your deck to be able to just cycle everything, because sometimes we struggle when you take a Runic Pyramid to be able to get rid of cards in your hand so that you don't just flood your hand with garbage. It has synergies with Tactician and Reflex, with Tough Bandages, with Tingsha, Bing Bing, with After Image, of course. It's just got a billion things. It's got a bunch of stuff. But here's a hot take. It is not always as useful as we want it to be. That's a hot take there. And for that, I put it in A tier. I don't think it's S tier, because I don't always think it's the bee's knees. Caltrops. The beta art is Caltrops with less blood. Caltrops, I think people oftentimes undervalue this card. It is a very niche card, but it serves its purposes, right? There's reasons why we take AoE, right? Why do we take AoE? So that eventually, when we get to the Donu Deca fight, when we get to the Reptomancer fight, when we get to the Spire Shield fight, that we have AoE, which is fucking great. So why would we take a Caltrops? To deal with the birds, to deal with the Chosen, to deal with Stabby Book, to deal with the Act 4 Elites again, to deal with the Heart. I mean, it just does billions of damage to the Heart every single time that it does the multi-attack, right? So I do think that it's a card that if you're looking towards the Heart fight, and maybe you're like, oh shit, all I have is a Noxious Fumes and a Bouncing Flask, that's not going to scale very fast against the Heart. Every other fight in the game, I can stall. I'm like Frost Prime in the first hour of the stream. Turn on the G-Dang. It was the Sonic music. You know, I was making a meme about me. I was memeing at me, chat. Isn't going to scale fast enough against something like the Heart or like Stabby Book. You're a little bit slower against the infinitely scaling characters. Caltrops is nuts, man. I really, 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 really think that people undervalue Caltrops, and taking one early just kind of makes you breathe a sigh of relief that you don't need to be doing something specific. A tier. I think bottom of A tier just because it's a heart killer. Like, this card alone, unupgraded, kills the heart. I'm going to say some controversial shit. You guys ready? I'm going to say it. It's good beta art, I'm not going to lie. Catalyst is not that good of a card. I think that either your deck doesn't have a lot of poison in it, and you have like a fucking noxious fumes, and then going from 3 to 9 poison. That's a +6 poison for 1 mana, and it was an uncommon card that you got excited about and then took to a campfire, and you upgraded it. But if I have 3 deadly poisons in my deck, an upgraded footwork, and 72 backflips, I don't need Catalyst. So it's either you don't have a lot of poison, and Catalyst is shit, or you do have a lot of poison, and Catalyst isn't necessary. There's a sweet spot where Catalyst is great. If I have maybe like an upgraded Bouncing Flask and a Crippling Cloud, 2 very expensive poison cards that I'm only going to play once or twice throughout a fight when I have the option to, boom, babunga, right? It's got that sweet spot. But I feel like people are just like, fucking Catalyst, let's fucking, and then they just, you know, they go off. I mean, how many of you guys get a Toxic Gang on floor 2 and then take the upgraded Catalyst on turn 3? You know what I'm saying? I think that Catalyst is a boss killer or a waste of space, which if you have a lot of cycle isn't that bad. I think that Rekja said something good. Catalyst early is diamond hands, hold the line. Yeah, Catalyst is literally GME stock. Is it a good idea? No, but are we all fucking investing? Yeah. I think the Catalyst is B tier. Catalyst is A tier because of the beta art. Chat, stop arguing with me. It's C tier now. Eat shit, boys. Choke! It's good. It's pretty good. It's solid. It's solid. It's one of the better beta arts. Not gonna lie. It is. This card is dog shit. This card is so bad. This, you want to know, chat? You know who said earlier, who was like, I think the bullet time is as bad as 1,000 cuts. I think the choke is worse than 1,000 cuts. The mana cost is too high. It requires way too much setup to work. Like, I could have 2 Blade Dance pluses in my deck, and then how many times am I gonna draw choke, but not draw a single shiv? It goes through block though. Okay. So like there's one fight where that's really good, and that guy has 3 artifact. Melter is just a better choke. True! Actually though. But this silence looking really waifu in that art. I'm turning the beta art off now, Chad. But yeah, I stand by my D-tiered choke art because it's D for dick. All right, Cloak and Dagger. Ah, Cloak and Dagger. S tier for shivs. A tier for sure. Because think about it like this. Chat, would you rate Iron Wave as a good card? Meh. A lot of people saying no. Meh. A couple people saying yes because they get where I'm going with this. This right now is dealing 8 damage and blocking for 6. It is less block and 1 less block and 1 more damage than an Iron Wave Plus. Here, it is 1 more block and 1 damage less than an Iron Wave Unplus. Arguments for it are in Shiv decks. It's good to have it, right? You get a kunai, you get footwork, after image. Great, right? That's good stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's good. But we also have to look at it at its base value, right? We looked at Blade Dance at its base value. 1 mana, 16 damage. We agreed. That's Poggy, right? That's Poggy. We agreed with that. So we have to look at this also with its base value in mind. And its base value is barely better than an Iron Wave. So I think that is high B tier. I think it's high B tier. When you've got a Shiv deck running, that I think is the best time to rock a Cloak and Dagger. Early in the game, if you're taking Cloak and Daggers, It's not going to be that good. It's going to be highly underwhelming, and you're going to feel like you're going to want to upgrade it. Because 6 block and 4 damage is shit. Dog shit! I mean, it's a lot better than iWave simply because it has a lot more potential synergies. I disagree. I think it has the same amount of synergies. You get strength gain, and you still have a block on a card, right? 7 block when you can deal a butt ton of damage with an Iron Wave, right? I will take dealing 2 less damage than a strike to get an additional 7 block, right? And then it means that I might be able to deal more damage that turn. On top of things like Juggernaut synergies and whatnot, I think that it has about the same amount of synergy as Cloak and Dagger. I think that Cloak and Dagger and Iron Wave are extremely similar cards. Also, Iron Wave, much better against all of the people that don't like you playing multiple cards, right? It's better against Time Eater, better against the Chosen One on Act 2. It's better against Gremlin Knob, right? All right, concentrate time, boys. Is that a fidget spinner? Concentrate is one of those cards that if your deck doesn't have a lot of draw, it sucks balls. But once it's upgraded, and if you have the correct cycle with it, and with the correct combos, oh, trying to do the noise that Carl does from Jimmy Neutron when he's thinking about Jimmy's mom. I think that Concentrate is either a card that makes your deck go moon, or it makes the moon crash into the planet and you fucking implode. It is either dog shit booty trash tier, or it is S tier omega awesome. And so for that, I'm going to put it in B tier. Because it's got to be middle of the road. But I don't think that it's as useless as these cards. I think that it has a lot more uses. And I think that discard decks are definitely coming up in the meta right now. I think that people are starting to run Tacticians and starting to run Reflexes a lot more. So you're going to see your favorite streamers running those decks more often. Horse Explosion S tier, any arguments? It's got great beta art. It's one of the strongest cards in the entirety of the game that you would take on any class, on any person. There's not a single class that you would see a Corpse Explosion and be like, nah. It's I think the Corpse Explosion is possibly the only card that I can think of that argues with Disarm over being one of the strongest cards of the game. The fact that you don't have to keep the poison on it, it's literally just like I could have the poison hit the artifact and then just the Corpse Explosion passive hit the enemy. Crippling Cloud is great AoE. It's, 7 damage on every single character for plus weakening. Really, really strong. It exhausts too, right? Yeah, it's not a card that I would want to play multiple times in a fight. It's very similar to Shockwave in feel. Yeah, deals damage and also just gives weaken to everyone. It's fucking solid card. It's a card that I would take if I was in the midst of a large poison deck. I would still consider taking a Crippling Cloud. Yeah, I definitely think that it is high A tier. I'm gonna put it up with like Blade Dance and shit like that. Because having one in every single one of your decks, as long as you've got the energy to play it, that's really the only thing that matters. Is if you don't have a high energy deck and you've got a couple of other larger cards, like you have a Corpse Explosion in your deck and maybe you got a dash early in the run and a doppelganger, you're probably not gonna want a Crippling Cloud. But like, yeah, it's sick. Dagger Spray. That's dumb. Dagger Spray. This is a solid common card. If we're gonna rank Cleave A tier, Spray is A tier. I do not disagree with you, my friend. It is Poggy with Akabeko. It's Poggy if you get a little bit of strength. It's Poggy. It's great. You got Bag of Marbles. Definitely A tier. 1 mana, 12 damage AoE. Oh, I know, right? It's sick. That high in A? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We're talking powerful effects in a card. 12 damage to as many targets that are in the fight, and it hits twice. Yeah, we're looking at Dagger Throw, a card that 99.9% of us take at like floor 1 through 7, and it's solid. The base damage, crazy good, like someone in chat said. It's got a lot of synergies, right? Just because it's a good attack, but also the discard just lets you get something dog shit like a burn or a wound or something that you don't want out of your hand. You can pop it on a tactician. Works with tough bandages. Where's Dagger Spray? Or Dagger Throw? What the fuck? That? Did this tier list not add Dagger Throw? It's so good, it's gone from the list. Oh, wait, what the hell? What the fuck? Dagger Throw. What are you doing all the way down here, bud? I might throw it at the bottom of A tier, actually. Yeah, I definitely think it's bottom of A tier. Dish. It's Iron Wave Plus, yes. But usually the value of block is much better than the value of strength. And so Dash is definitely, I would rate much higher. Yo, what up, Scrun? I would rate Dash much higher than Iron Wave. I will take a Dash very frequently, and I won't take Iron Waves very much at all. And I think that comes because playing a Dash unupgraded doesn't feel like shit, but playing an Iron Wave unupgraded feels like shit. It has a lot. Yeah, it's got Necronomicur synergy. Yeah, it's got a lot going on, man. I definitely think that it feels good when you see a Dash early on. Even taking a Dash later on can be good. Let's go to Rating Dash, just because it's ease of use, and because I'm excited to see it all the time. I think I'm gonna put it in B tier above Cloak and Dagger. I don't think that I'm like, it's great, don't get me wrong, but it's not one of those things that's gonna win me a run. It's not like late into the game I'm gonna be like, I need my third Dash in my deck. Whereas like I honestly might want a third Dagger Throw in my deck if I've got discard synergies. Deadly Poison, unupgraded, one of the most mediocre cards in the game. Upgraded, Poggy, Poggy, Poggy. Omega Poggy, very, very Poggy. Super duper Poggy. Bouncing Flask is like 45 some odd damage, right? To one target. But that is over 12 turns. 12 turns, highly unlikely to happen, right? Highly unlikely to happen in a hallway fight. 7 turns? Still kind of unlikely to happen in most hallway fights. But it's there. 7, it's usually hallway fights are about 4 to 6 turns in Act 1 and Act 2. Act 3, they get longer. So, I think Deadly Poison Pluses are great. They're easy to play. Deadly Poison feels awkward. Deadly Poison Plus is a lot better than Bouncing, also because it's targeted, also because it costs less. And also, having multiple Bouncing Flasks in my deck feels like fucking garbage most of the time. I'm going to go with a controversial opinion here, chat. I'm going to do it. I think it's S tier. All right. Defend. Defend in other classes we've rated very low. But I don't think we're allowed to do that with this class. I think defends are better. Because of, you know, literally footwork. This one card makes defends really fucking good. Now, do they still get clunky? Yes. A lot of times do I not want them? Yes. I'm gonna put them in C tier. Just literally, it's just because the silent is such a defensive chick. All right, deflect. Deflect is free block, but you still have to draw it, which means that your deck isn't continuing to scale. But if you deflect is good if you have a lot of draw synergies, but you don't have a lot of mana. So if you're running like a 3-mana deck, but you've got like a Runic Pyramid and a Calculated Gamble and a Backflip, then all of a sudden Deflect becomes extraordinarily strong with an After Image.
That's a lot of months.
With a choke. With the footworks, it's incredible. Just to fluff your deck a little bit for something like Flechettes, you got Expertises. It's great. It's phenomenal. I think oftentimes people take it too early into a run just because it's 0 cost, and then their deck gets too bloated because they're trying to add other things, and then it becomes a very shitty card. Personally. All right. Die. S tier beta art. 17 damage to every single character in the fight for 1 mana. if we think that Blade Dance is a good card because it is 1 mana, 16 damage, I think everything about Blade Dance is poggy. It's a hallway killer, right? So in boss fights, when the target has 420 HP, nice. When the target has 420 HP, 17 damage, doesn't feel all that poggy. But 17 damage in a lot of Act 1, Act 2, even some Act 3 hallway fights is very, very good. It's phenomenal. It really is good. Because of the fact that it exhausts, so we don't we don't have to draw it again in a boss fight when we're trying to scale, is actually really good and very helpful. And it's actually something that we want, because there's so many boss fights like Collector or Bronze Automaton or Woke Bitch, right? That they have those ads at the beginning of the fight, and sometimes Collector will respawn them and then you kind of mauled a little bit. But it's really, really good for those fights as well. The perfect front-loaded damage rare card. I'm gonna put it in S. What did I do? All right. Distraction. Distraction sucks. Distraction is terrible. Positives about distraction. When a card says, add a random blank to your hand, it does not care about rarity. That's Pog. Every single card is equal in this metric. So you have an equal chance of seeing a rare card as you do any other card. So that's a Poggy. Sure. But it's like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? It gives you an unupgraded attack, man. It's gonna give me a doppelganger at 1 mana. It's gonna give me an escape plan that gives me 3 block. It's gonna give me an unupgraded deflect. It's gonna give me a crippling cloud that I can't afford. A concentrate that's gonna be a curse for the rest of the fight. A catalyst when I'm running shivs. A shivs when I'm running a catalyst. A backflip when it's dog shit. Terrible. Is there a time and a place? F tier. All right. Moving on. Dodge and roll. Am I excited to see it when it's unupgraded in Act 1? No. In fact, it makes me sad. But am I excited to see an upgraded version of it when I have 2 footworks in the deck and a blur? When I maybe have like a well-laid plans, a runic pyramid I can set up for specific turns. I want more mana for next turn so I can have free block for next. Dodge and roll, I think, is an extremely good card. Or it's I think it's one of those cards that late into the game is much better than it's early into the game if your deck synergizes with it. And with all of that in mind, I think it goes in B tier. Nah, but I think dodge and roll is definitely pretty solid. Even at its base value, it still blocks for 8 if you're going into enemies that attack a lot. Doppelganger, it's not F tier, but I do think it's like D tier level. Because it's hard to make work, man. It's just hard to make work. Yeah, if we got a Chemex, then we can just play it for free every single time that we draw it, and the next turn's Poggy. Sure. It sucks that I saw it as a rare card, and I need my mana on that turn. Like, most of the time, I need my mana. Like, my deck is very rarely strong enough that I don't need all my mana every single turn. You know what I'm saying? All right. Endless Agony. Deal 4 damage. Whenever you draw this card, add a copy of it to your hand. It's a fun beta art. It's a fun beta art. It does, it's technically 0 mana, 8 damage. At its best, 0 mana, 12 damage. That's good. It's a self-terminating anger. Exactly. It's like it's like Reckless Swing, but it doesn't add any dog shit to your deck. If I can't play it, it sucks. If I get Sneckoed Fight, it sucks. It's good for Kunai and Shuriken. Am I excited to see it? I'll probably add one to my deck sometimes. I got a wrist blade, Poggy, right? I almost want to put it in C tier, but maybe we'll just leave it there. Is it C tier? Yeah, it's C tier, because you're never putting more than one in your deck. All right. Envenom. Envenom, one of the best beta arts in the game. Don't argue with me. Sucks when it's not upgraded. Decent when it's upgraded. But I feel like a lot of the time, we have Envenom, and we are adding like 2 poison a turn. And then it goes from 2 to 1, and then we add another 2, and it goes to 3. And it's like a Noxious Fumes, except it's only on 1 person. It's good with shivs, but it's only good with shivs when your shivs are big. Because if I only have 4 damage, right? If I only have 4 damage shivs, I'm not breaking through certain characters' block. You feel me? Like there's plenty of fights like the avocado fight or the baseball fight or Donudeka. There's plenty of fights where it just doesn't break through. And I think that this 2 cost, I think, should not be scoffed at. Because how many times do you take this card? You can never get it off, and you never have enough HP to upgrade it, or you have better things to upgrade. Like, don't get me wrong, it can be good. What about Dagger Spray synergy? 3 mana, I get to get 4 poison on every target? Big! I mean, yeah, if you got Snecko Skull, dude, moon. Like, this shit's OP. Yeah. Snecko Skull makes Envenom fucking fuck. I'm gonna say because... Yeah, I'm gonna say B tier. Because it's one of those cards that when it's bad, it's F tier. But when it makes your deck better, it just skyrockets, right? I like that. Escape Plan. This card kind of sucks. This card, it's underwhelming, man. For an uncommon card, it's underwhelming. The beta or excuse me, it's for an uncommon card, it's underwhelming. If you've got After Images, if you've got Footworks, you've got Smooth Stone, you've got 1,000 spells and flechettes, great. But it's very similar to like FTL for the defect. It's just kind of meh. But meh doesn't necessarily mean bad. Until you get to fights like Gremlinob and Chosen and Time Eater and the Heart. I don't get excited to see Escape Plan. I've taken Escape Plan plenty of times, and it's definitely got its place. But I think most of the time it's a waste of a card reward. And so for that, I'm going to put it in high C tier. We're about to get into a row of 3 bad cards. 3 bad cards. Eviscerate. What's the best time to take an Eviscerate, chat? Do you guys know? I'll tell you. An attack potion. From an attack potion. Is very rarely a time that it's necessary. I like discard decks. I think the discard decks are getting stronger. I think the people are learning how to play with them better. I don't think that it's D tier. I think that it is the bottom of C tier. Expertise. Now, I like that beta art. I ain't gonna lie. I like that beta art. 1 mana, draw 7. Pog. Now, that guy has a Mahogany Frit. Usually, in a deck that it is good in, it is not necessary. Because in a deck that it's good in is something that has, like, Concentrate. But you're not going to take a Concentrate unless you had something like an Expertise. But you wouldn't take an Expertise unless you had something like a Concentrate. But you wouldn't take a Concentrate unless you had something like a unless you had something like a reflex or a tactician, which then you wouldn't want the expertise. It's a great card to take from Pandora's box. So yeah, I think that expertise definitely would go for me in the C tier. It has its places to make work, but it's extremely difficult to make work. Or it's almost borderline unnecessary to make work. Finisher recently got a that's really nice. That's good. Finisher recently got a buff, and that's because Shiv's got a buff, which makes Finisher get a buff. But I still don't rate Finisher very highly. But if you like the way that I think about it, right? If you're running a Shiv deck and you have Blade Dance Plus with an Accuracy Plus, that is 40 damage for 1 mana, right? And then on top of that, you take a Finisher, okay? And that Finisher then becomes 32 damage. It is less damage than taking another Blade Dance Plus. Now, obviously, in the perfect storm, the reason where you would take, or the place where you would take it is where you have some sort of setup kind of stuff. So you have the well-laid plans, the runic pyramids, a lot of cycle, frozen eyes so you can see your deck. And then you can set up for a turn where you maybe have more Blade Dances, but still, card for card, it's not actually better than Blade Dance Plus when you have an accuracy. It's a weird way to think about it, but that's why Finisher always feels like kind of lackluster. Yeah. It's kind of lackluster, man. But it's definitely got its spot. It's definitely got its place. The only situation it would be amazing is when it gets outscaled. Yep. I do like Finisher with a Shuriken. Sure. I mean, there's definitely times where it can feel good to add to the deck because, like, just because you have an accuracy in a Blade Dance Plus doesn't mean you're guaranteed to see another one. And sometimes you just have to take what you're given, right? And so if you're given a Finisher, sometimes it's better to take it. And so that's where I feel like it can come in and it can still be strong. But the thing with Finisher, though, is like you really have to try to make it work, whereas a Blade Dance Plus with an accuracy is just... it works. It's just, anytime you draw it, it's there, and it does a fuck ton and poggy, Whereas Finisher, it takes so much. Yeah. So, I'm going to say Finisher. D tier. D for finishing. That doesn't make any sense. Next up on the list, Flechettes is a phenomenal card for the Silent. I think it is very, very strong for the Silent. I think that the Silent makes use of it very easily. I mean, the fact that you start with an extra spell in your deck and most of the stuff that you like to do with your deck involves spells at some point or another. When it comes to drawing, when it comes to blade dances with shivs, when it comes to poison, right? A lot of what you're doing as the Silent is spells. And it could also very easily be shit if, you take a Flechettes early because you found like a good spell and then all you see is nothing but attacks. And then, yeah, it can definitely suck. But I think that it also is just like extremely strong. I definitely value it highly as an additive to an already strongly cycling deck. We haven't been up an A tier in a very long time. But here we are, boys. It's kind of like Barrage. Yeah, it's like 18 fucking damage. It's like 18 damage. If you draw like a decent hand, it's like 12 to 18 damage for 1 mana. And it scales with strength multiple times. Really good stuff. Yeah. Flying Knee. Silent just has S tier beta arts. One in the chat if you agree. I think Flying Knee is one of the easiest added cards on Act 1. Right? You got like your dagger throws, your dagger sprays, and then you've got something like a Flying Knee. I'm really akin to add it on Act 1. I'm never going to add it in my deck after Act 1. Very rarely. And even then, no. But it's great. I mean, it serves a purpose. It just does a little bit of damage, and then, yeah. It's in the same vein as Charged Battery. Yeah, but Charged Battery is always going to get value because I'm always going to want to block things. Whereas later in the game that I get as Silent, I'm going to want to play less attacks a lot of the time, especially less just plain-ass attacks like this, and I'm going to be more focused on my spells and on my damage mitigation from the enemy. So yeah, I'm gonna put it in B tier. How poggy-woggy has chat been today? Chat's been pretty poggy-woggy. Wouldn't you agree, boys? Work this here.
Yep.
All right, we're just on the same page here. Yeah. Just on the same page here. Yeah. It's just S tier. It's just so fucking good. Well, that doesn't mean that you want it in 100% of decks, but yeah, you see a footwork on floor 1 or 2, you pee yourself a little, you know? You know how the deck's gonna go. It's gonna go well. Glass knife. Glass knifeu, more like glass waifu. I think glass knife is A tier. Middle of the pack, A tier. 1 mana, 16 damage at its base. Upgraded, 1 mana, 24 damage. You're like, Tristan, he's gonna fall off and it's not gonna deal as much damage later than the... It's in the same vein as Die Die Die. It destroys hallway fights. Is it worse than Die Die Die? Yeah. Yeah, but when do you ever pick it? I mean, over other cards? Over other good S tier? Like, over these? Sorry, these? Not often. But over these? Often. Like, if we're talking about a boss reward, am I going to pick Glass Knife more often than Bullet Time, Thousand Cuts, Doppelganger, and Envenom? Yes. Let's get to a controversial card. I think that Grand Finale, if you are a 5-head player that would like to take 72 minutes on every single turn, you could pull it off very easily. A lot. Is it going to work in every deck? No. But I think you can pull it off a lot more often than you'd think. Can run it. It just takes time and effort. Most of us absolutely 100% never want to think that hard. And I think because of that, I'm going to put it in C tier. In a deck that it works in, it's phenomenal. Peel Hook. That is a phenomenally drawn... Like, that's just really high detail. I didn't know that this existed, but holy shit. Nice beta art, but fuck Heel Hook. Agreed. Agreed 1,000,000%. This card sucks balls. It's just dropkick. Yeah, it's just the Ironclad's dropkick, but on weekend, and that's worse. It's terrible. I'm gonna put it in the D tier. It does less damage than a strike. It isn't always going to proc. It floods my deck, and it sucks absolute ass. I think pre-Shiv buffs, I think Infinite Blades was the best Shiv card in the game. I think post-Shiv buffs, I think Blade Dance. It's just nuts. It's just crazy, man. But I still think that Infinite Blades is strong. I do. I think that taking an Infinite Blades really early into a run, it's just good. It really just is. It's slow, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But it deals... Whoops, that was not the beta art. That is funny, though. It deals with its slowness, with the innate, right? It deals with itself in terms of being slow. Because most slow cards need to be innate so that we can get them off early and they can power up. There are places where it's bad, right? You don't want it in the Time Eater fight, but you just don't play it in the Time Eater fight, and then it's just kind of like a curse for a little bit. It doesn't hurt you during Gremlin Knob. It doesn't... I mean, it's not going to deal infinite damage forever, right? It's definitely still puts you on the clock, but I think that Infinite Blades... Honestly, I get quite excited early to see Infinite Blades, and late game, with Shivs being good, if you find one late game, I think it's A tier. Unironically, I think it's A tier. All right. Leg sweep. It just doesn't stop. The good cards, or the good beta arts just don't stop.
YouTube.
Do I get excited to see a leg sweep? Yeah. Any card that by itself, one card deals almost entirely with Lagavulin's 20 damage turns. That's crazy. Here's the negative, though. I'm about to hit you with the negatives, chat. I think that when you have a leg sweep in your deck, and your deck focuses a lot on blocking, right? I think that you'll draw your leg sweep again, and on that turn, playing multiple defensive cards is better than playing leg sweep because it scales if you play 2 defensive cards, it scales twice with your upgraded footworks and you know, things like that, and after images, right? Versus not playing the leg sweep, and then maybe the weaken wears off, or, you know, whatever. The 2 cost is clunky, not for the reason of it is hard to play. It is very easy to play in the early game, into the mid game, and even the late game. It's very easy to play. I'm not saying that leg sweep is bad. I'm just talking about the negatives of leg sweep and the things that I want people to keep in mind when they're using leg sweep. That's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to shit on leg sweep and be like, no, I think this card is terrible, never take it, right? I think it's a card that you very much like in most of your decks, and I do agree that it's S. But I needed to get my shit out about why it's bad, and you guys fought me a lot on that, but I had to get it out. Malaise. Malaise is one of those cards that is very similar in power to Caltrops, because it fights the same bosses. Caltrops beats the heart, Malaise beats the heart, Caltrops beats Stabby Book, Malaise beats Stabby Book, the Caltrops beats the birds, Malaise helps you beat the birds, right? It just goes on and on and on. On top of that, it gives you a bunch of weakening. On top of the markdown, so usually at 1 mana, it will block for pretty much the same amount of damage if you're just playing it for 1 mana as Disarm. And we put Disarm in S tier, and we praised it for being one of the highest cards, best cards in the entire game. Now, when I say that it blocks more for the same as Disarm, I mean on that turn, right? Because it'll give you 1 strength for 1 mana, and then a weaken, which usually will be for at least 2 damage. But that's only for 1 turn, because then the weaken goes away. But I do think that having 1 Disarm in your deck kind of guarantees you a W in a lot of places. I don't think you want more than 1. That's the thing. Is like, do I want more than 1 Disarm? Yeah. Yeah, I do. Like, a lot. Do I want more than 1 Malaise? No. Not usually. Sometimes. Sometimes, sure. You got Chemex. You've got a lot of cycle. You've got a lot of draw, a lot of energy storing. Got Ice Cream. Yeah, sure. Go for it. But I don't find a lot of decks that I'm wanting, that I'm excited to take multiple Malaise. And for that, I give it high A tier. Sorry, Malaise. Eat shit. Masterful Stab. Just doesn't miss, man. Masterful Stab is great if you find one, like, Act 1, and you need to beat Lagavulin, or you need to beat Gremlin Knob. But the fact that literally, like, just drawing on turn 1, no defensive cards, and you take 6 damage to the birds on Act 2, and then this thing costs fucking 6 mana. That's doo-doo dog shit, man. Like, it's literally only worth to play it at 0 or 1 mana. After you've taken damage twice in a fight, fucking sucks. I'm gonna put it in F tier. Neutralize is just go for the eye, but without the stipulation on it. Like, it's actually... it's actually just go for the eyes from the defect, but without the stipulation. And it's even got kick-ass beta art, dude. The one starting card inside of the starter deck of a character that I would want to take a second one in the matching game most frequently. That's a weird fucking sentence. Because there's obviously times you get a Snecko Eye and you got a Molten Egg, you'd want to take a second Bash, right? You know, the Watcher eat shit, but, you know, she could possibly want to take a second Wrath or second Eruption, right? But I think this one is, like, most often, hands down, that in the matching game, I would be down to take a second one of these. And I think it's just useful throughout the entirety of the game. Whereas a lot of the other ones tend to lose a little bit more value. I hands down, unequivocally, without a doubt, I slurred my words. S tier. Nightmare. It's very good beta art, because it takes the guy who just looks scared and he makes him so sad. Nightmare is the definition of a win more card. It takes something that is already making your deck win and make you win more. The caveat is that it is very hard to use in a lot of decks, and so you oftentimes try to take it in order to make your deck go to the moon, and then it just becomes clunky, and it's very, very difficult to play. I do think that Nightmare is extremely strong, and I definitely think that it's an S tier card. That might be a hot take. I think a lot of people probably are going to put it in A tier, but I think that it's an S tier card. Noxious Fumes, S tier. Any questions, chat? God damn it, dude. It's just, she just don't miss, chat. Having Scaling Poison, it's too fucking OP, man. It's just way too G-dang strong. God, even on the bad cards, you got a good beta art. It's outmaneuver's so dog shit. 99.9% of the times, it is so bad. Sometimes it can be good. Like every card in the game, it will have its chance. It will have its moment to shine. But so often, it is terrible. It can be good in a deck with a Skewer and a Runic Pyramid, or, you know, some way to retain cards, and you're setting up for a big slam of a turn. It can work in a setup-y kind of deck, for sure. Phantasmal Killer recently got buffed from 2 mana to 1 mana, then upgraded to 0 mana. Beta art is okay. But I do think that Phantasmal Killer recently got better with a lot of the silence retaining synergies. I think the Phantasmal Killer is, once again, it's okay. It's okay. It's literally, I'll do Wrath next turn, you know? But I'm not as opposed, I would say, to taking it early in the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I were to get it from, like, an Act 1 Elite fight, I'm less likely nowadays to say no to it. But I do think it's C tier, because it's harder to make work than something like an Envenom. My God.
Don't miss.
I don't think there's a single time that you don't want 1 or 2 Piercing Wails in a deck. I think taking it too early or taking too many, they easily become very bad and clunky because they don't scale. And that's a big thing, right? If you are having scaling mitigation with footworks, this does not scale. But it is phenomenal for the heart fight. It's phenomenal for multi-attack fights, AoE fights. It is an AoE defense, and it's one of the few in the game, other than Weaken. It is one of the few AoE defenses in the game, and because of that, I would put it in S tier. Poison Stab. Oof. The one shit beta art. Eat shit, silent. Poison Stab, 1 mana, 12 damage. You know, or 1 mana, 12, 15, 17, 18. 1 mana, 18 damage. 18 damage. Poison Stab is a fantastic card. It is a absolutely amazing card. It's good early. It's got synergy with your poison stuff. It's great. I think that if there is any strike plus card to go in S tier, I think that it would be Poison Stab. But I don't think that I'm going to put it there. I think I'm going to put it at the top of A, and that might be controversial. But I think that Poison Stab is the ball lightning of the silent, right? You see it on floor 1, you get a little bit excited. I don't like that. I really don't like that, man. I think people oftentimes undervalue Predator. Playing mana to draw cards on your turn means that you have less mana to play cards. Playing cards to draw more cards on the next turn, you refresh your energy and you have more. Predator, it's a solid amount of damage early in the game, right? And late in the game when energy is more abundant, and this becomes easier to play on the turn that you use it. It's really good. And it feels good with Snecko, as Necronomicon synergies. It's just good. I'm gonna put it in A tier. All right. Prepared. God damn. Prepared is an interesting card. I think people oftentimes overvalue Prepared. Prepared plus? Good. Good stuff. I think the thing that people don't realize with Prepared is they take one Prepared, and then they want a second Prepared, and then they want a third Prepared, and that's not that good. Because Prepareds make you actually have less cards in your hand. And so having multiple of them just kind of eats away at the amount of cards that are allowed to be in your hand. If you have an unupgraded Prepared and you have no discard synergies, The card that you are going to draw with Prepared is going to be the card that you would have drawn if you didn't have Prepared in your deck. But then, it then requires you to discard one of the 5 cards that are now showing in your hand. So you then only have 4 cards of options to choose from. I think Prepared is C tier. Quick Slash. Like, this is what we're talking about. This one, it says draw 1, that's fine. Because it's essentially more damage than a strike, but it's doing a little bit more. When you add a Quick Slash to your deck on the beginning of Act 1, what's the strongest card in your deck, damage-wise? It's Quick Slash, right? In order to, even though you're going to draw things that you're not going to be able to play because you only have 3 energy and you're going to see 6 cards in that turn, is good because you're wanting to play those really strong cards more often. And that's why draw 1 card is actually pretty good when the value of the card is also good. But when Quick Slash is the only card that you have in the deck, let's say you take the random common relic or whatever, when Quick Slash is the only upgraded strike in your deck, when you want to play Quick Slash more. So playing Quick Slash not only deals more damage than a strike, but it also cycles another card so that you more quickly will draw Quick Slash. So that's why, you know, cards that cycle 1 are decent. But I think the Quick Slash is definitely one of the weaker of like the Dagger Sprays and the Dagger Throws and the Flaquettes and the Poison Stabs. So I'm gonna put it at the tippity top of B tier. I take it often, but I just don't think it's quite there. Now we get, oh my god. Now we get into some complications. I think that between Reflex and Tactician, those are the 2 unplayable, discardable cards that the Silent could have. I think that Tactician is definitely leagues ahead. But I think that people sleep on Reflex, man. I think the Reflex is slept on. I've had so many decks recently, like Storm of Steel being upgraded, being buffed recently. Storm of Steel was commonly being used with a Reflex so that I would get a bunch of shivs and then cycle into good cards. Yeah, I think that Reflex is a lot better than people give it credit for. Because we're talking about cards that would be good if you can retain things in your hand, right? Like Concentrate, like Grand Finale, Malaise, Nightmare, right? All of these cards that kind of have this synergy of like, when I can keep shit in my hand, they get better. Reflex is nuts. Oh yeah, Reflex was bad pre-buff when it was only 1 and 2. Yeah. But I think that new Reflex is really, really strong. And I think people sleep on it. And I think more people should be trying to use it in their decks. And if you can get one thing from this tier list, it is to try to use Reflex and Tacticians more. And that doesn't mean to take them when you only have your Survivor. I don't recommend that. But, like, the synergy between Concentrate and Reflex, that's crazy. I think I'm going to throw Reflex in a B tier right next to Concentrate. Just because they synergize so effing well. Riddle with holes. It's a lot of holes, Chad. This card, Chad. This is just a better base damaged Heavy Blade. Like, this is just Heavy Blade plus. Because unupgraded, Riddle with Holes is better than Heavy Blade. Upgraded, it's better than Heavy Blade 2. But either way, it kind of sucks balls. Like, yeah, if you can bottle it with an Akabeko, yeah, that's nuts. Don't get me wrong. But 15 to 20 damage for 2 mana, if we're talking about Blade Dances and Flaquettes and all these cards that deal so much, I cannot, with a good conscience, say that Riddle with Holes is poggy. And if we already rated Heavy Blade so low, I can't help but put Riddle with Holes in D tier. A worse Predator? Yeah, I mean, Predator, right? It does the same amount of damage. But this effect of drawing 2 additional cards is powerful. Set up. Has anyone actually ever used this card? I want to try to use this card because it recently got buffed. It used to be put a card at the bottom of your drop pile and it cost 0. But now it's put at the top. So I feel like it could have use, right? But here's the thing. It makes something cost 0 until it's played. And if you had like a Runic Pyramid deck, it could be good. But the thing is, man, is so many of your cards on the Silent don't have high costs. Like, I could understand if I'm the fucking Iron Boy or if I'm the Defect and I've got a Meteor Strike sitting in my hand and a Runic Pyramid. Help me out, please. Bludgeon? No! But there's just not a lot of cards that I would like to make cost 0 and then play the next turn that I wouldn't want to play that turn anyways. Like, yes, there's some synergy with like making my Wraith form costing 0, then nightmaring my Wraith form and they all cost 0. Cool. But it is so flippin' fudgin' frickin' fucking hard to get off. It does, hey, it does work with Wristblade. You're not wrong, brother. You're not wrong. It does work with Wristblade. But because it is so difficult to make work, because if I use it with a Wristblade, then I don't necessarily have a good form of retaining unless I have to get Well-Laid Plans, Wristblade, and Riddle with Holes. And a setup. Do you know how uncommon that is? They're both uncommon cards. It's F tier to me. That's fun. That's fun right there. That's kind of fun, though. That's kind of fun. That's kind of yummy. It looks like shrimp. 3 mana for 30 damage. It's like, well, that's like, not that good, right? We're talking about 1 mana for 16 damage. But it's 3 mana for 30 damage at once. 1 card. Slap them and blap them. You get a tear. It's 15, 45 damage for 3 mana. You can also, it has a lot of discarding synergies with if you get an early Flying Knee, or you get like a Tactician, or you get a Concentrate, it very quickly can become quite strong. I think that it really provides you a lot of early power too, that you can then pivot into later. If I find an early skewer, I'm excited to take it because I know that it's going to help me defeat elites very easily. And then later I can pivot either away from the skewer and it's just another card in the deck that I'm wanting to get rid of that's at the very worst a Strike Plus. But at the very best, it can be like the forefront of my deck where I'm keeping it in my hand using a fucking a Concentrate on top of an upgraded Tactician, and all of a sudden I've got a bunch of fucking damage, and I've got a bunch of shivs as well to make me stack up my pen nib, and then, yeah, top of B. A lot of people saying top of B. I'm inclined to agree with you. Slice. I think Slice is undervalued. It's like Anger. You think about Anger for the Ironclad, and it's like early in the game, sometimes you just need more damage per turn, right? And if I draw strike, strike, bash, all of a sudden that strike, that second strike is less useful. But if that second strike is instead an Anger, it's more useful. And it's the same thing with the Silence, where early in the game, since she doesn't heal on hallway fights, I feel like we're oftentimes trying to min-max our HP as hard as possible. Slice becomes very efficient, especially early game on the Silent when you're drawing 7 cards on turn 1. It's hard to get all that shit off, but Slice can make it all that much easier. So I'm also going to put Slice in B tier. I think these 4 cards right here are all very similar. All right, chat. We get to Sneaky effing Strike. This is the card that I'm going to put in the YouTube thumbnail in S tier to try to be like, oh my god, he put the Sneaky Strike in S tier. I gotta watch, But in reality, let's not beat around the bush, chat. Sneaky Strike is in its own tier of dog shit. It is so fucking bad. Really? I like Sneaky Strike. Nah. It's pretty fucking bad. I hate this card. It is very bad. Unless you have Snecko, it literally is just paying for itself without even having the courtesy of drawing you a card like Heel Hook. All right. Storm of Steel recently got buffed. Give you Shiv pluses when you discard your entire hand. That's a good beta art. Poggy Woggy. I think Storm of Steel has recently gotten better. I still don't think it's all that good. I think if you find it upgraded, it could be quite nice. Be a little bit of damage. Even with a Shiv deck, though, I very rarely want this. I'll take it often, though, because it appeals to making chat happy, and chat gives me money. So, I mean, like, Shiv pluses literally deal the same damage as strikes, and I'm dipping my entire hand just to deal strikes. I'm gonna say Storm of Steel is C tier. It can be like a good finisher if you've got some accuracies. Don't get me wrong. It can be a good slam blam if you've got a bunch of if you've got a runic pyramid or some sort of retain mechanic. You've also got tacticians. You got reflex. It can be good. Don't get me wrong. It can work. Strike. The fact that the silence starts with 5 strikes feels so unbelievably bad. It's so much to manage throughout the entirety of the game. If you don't get early removal, it just feels like you're just constantly burdened by this plethora of garbage. Moving on. We've got a couple more cards left, and I'm very hungry, boys. I'm very, very hungry. Sucker Punch. Once again, she's punching the slaver in the face because he's got nets weekly. Because he's learning how to throw a net at her to entangle him. Get it, chat? You get it? Sucker Punch. 1 mana, 9 damage, 2 weaken. Extremely strong early in the game. And can even be strong late in the game. That we found another A-tier strike, boys. Weaken is one of the most powerful effects in the entire game. Weakening is broken because it scales multiplicatively. So the more damage that they're dealing, the more damage that it mitigates. Like that's just crazy. Like just that fact alone is crazy. All right, Survivor. Discard a card, starts in your opening deck, does a decent amount of block, kind of helps you out as you go. Definitely, if I could add more of these to the deck, I probably would, actually. Like, if this was, like, a common card that you could just see, I honestly probably would add, a couple more Survivors to the deck. I think it's a solid B tier. Like, the fact that you just get to discard some horseshit in your hand, or if you've got a bunch of good cards, you just wait until it's the last card, you know? Yeah, it's just a good block plus early. It's very strong. Anyways, Tactician. God damn it, dude. They're just so good. Tactician is extremely strong. Where did we rate Reflex? Where did I put Reflex? Put Reflex in B tier? I think Tactician is 1 step above because it's something that you can more easily add to your deck if you just have like a couple of dagger throws in your Survivor. And then you have the availability to play a couple more cards. Play a couple more things that are higher cost draw when you have 3 mana. I think it's a lot easier to use. They are not something that you should take in all of your decks. Last 5, chat. Last 5. Terror. You just don't miss. Terror. Terror. Terror, terror, terror. It's okay. And it's because of the fact that the silent oftentimes likes poison. So like 50% of the time, she's a poison one. And then when you switch over to doing the Shiv stuff, it doesn't feel as necessary for you to have that little bit more damage. And also the fact that, here's a big one. I know it's 99 poison, or 99 vulnerable, and that's sick. But it's 99 vulnerable once. Any character that has Artifact, it's a curse, because you're going to be like, dude, I don't want to use my 99 vulnerable on that, but it's actually better for you to use. In multi-targeted fights, Donu Deka. You know? In Spire Shield, Spire Sword, whatever the fuck. You can't do it on every other character. Like if you have a bash or an uppercut, you can swap between whoever you're focusing at the time. Yeah, anyone with Artifact, it just gets annihilated. I just don't. Not a huge fan of it. We're gonna throw it into the C tier. Or see you later, Terror. Tools of the Trade. God, it's just so good. Tools of the Trade is a card that I don't like very much, but I've been warming up to it a little bit recently. Remember how he said that Infinite Blades is a little bit slow? And so you have to draw it, play it, and then the next turn you get 4 additional damage, right? This is very similar. With the fact that to draw it, you didn't draw the card, or you don't draw the card that you then draw next turn, right? Most hallway fights end at turn 4, 5, or 6 in Act 1 through in 2. Sometimes it goes later in Act 3, but a lot of times it still ends there, right? So if you're drawing that in the bottom half of your deck, you're never getting value out of it in hallway fights. Whereas if it were able to become innate, then it skyrockets in value. But with discard decks, man, I mean, yeah, if you've got a good discard synergistic deck, oh, it's fucking nuts. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, tools of the trade, it is catapultistic. If you got Hovering Kite, maybe you're like, you traded your boss relic, you got Hovering Kite. Oh, man. Correct. I'm going to put it in B tier. Unload. One of the best beta arts in the game, for sure. 18 damage, 1 mana, and it discards everything in your hand. Jewel, thank you for the follow. Again, pretty decent with discard-related stuff. With Tough Bandages, Tingsha, with... Sorry, I'm saying so many times because my voice is starting to hurt. And my brain is starting to turn off. It's a better finisher. Yeah. It's good also if you don't retain all your cards, or maybe you retain all your cards, but you want new ones, because if you have Runic Pyramid, but you're having trouble cycling your deck, sometimes I'll take an unload just so I can reset the cycle. You know what I'm saying? Early in the game, though, I think it's really good to take just because it's a strong amount of damage for 1 mana. I would say unload, because it deals as much damage as it does, I would say A tier. But because it's a rare card, and I don't like seeing it next to other rare cards, because then it's letting me not see a better rare card, it's B tier. And last but not least, 2 cards that both start with W, both equal a W, and both synergize well with each other. Well-laid plans. Fucking crazy. We have not yet made a tier above S tier, but for the first time we are, and it's W tier. And we're gonna throw both well-laid plans, thank you for subscribing, and Wraith form into the W tier.
Life.
Being able to retain cards in your hand is busted. Oh, it is extremely strong, because you can have things like, for instance, Skewer and Concentrate in a deck of 25 cards. The odds that you're ever going to draw them together in the same hand, it's not a lot, man. But when I see Concentrate, and then I can hold it with well-laid plans until I find my Skewer, big. Any questions, any grievances about the list? Any malds to be had?